All right, welcome back, everyone. Hopefully, the last take. I didn't totally mess this up like 8 times before. So, really quick, what we're going to take a look at today is the ship updates from the monthly reviews. I'm going to take a sneak peek back a little bit at March, April, and then into the newest update, which is May's. February did not have a ship update, so there was nothing to glean off of that, but we'll take a look at these older ones. Additionally, from a very quick channel update, unfortunately, it was my father who had a stroke a few weeks back when Invictus started. I did take some time off during there, so I was able to help him out. And unfortunately, he was getting better, but had a cardiac arrest occur, and thankfully he was at the hospital, so he was able to be helped out there, and he is still recovering through both of those things at this point. So it is a bit of a hot mess for our family right now. And I have had a hard time focusing on these videos. That's why I kind of stopped making them. The one I did about Wicklow was okay, but it wasn't my usual Fallout standard. So I decided to not do videos for a little bit and just take a bit of a break and let things kind of pass. But I did want to cover this today. So here we go into the monthly update. And I'll take anyone who has nice thoughts and prayers, positive vibes, whatever you got for the healing of our family as we go through these terrible times of struggle here. So the March update. The few things I wanted to highlight here is they've been working on quite a few unannounced ships for some time. I think a lot of these ships were the ones that were released. I think the MTC was included in this update, as well as the MX and the Asgard. Some of the other ships here, we still don't quite know what they were, but the UK team has been working on. They were working on some of the stuff like the Golem and the Geo, but now that it's been months for that, we'll find out in later updates that the UK team is working on 4 ships that are unannounced, and we'll have to kind of make some guesses on that. I think this is big here. It's mentioning the NA based team, aka that NA based team, the Texas. I think it's the Texas team. Let me know if there's another U.S. office. I guess there's maybe still some folks in L.A., but I think they've mostly gotten out of there. So I think it has to be the Texas team. But they're working on an upcoming RSI ships. We also find in later updates that, as I shared last month, that they're working on 2 variants of ships. So I do think they're working on 2 RSI variants based off of this particular feedback from these multiple updates, which is why I looked at the older. I like to look at these older updates. The Apollo was working through white box, as well as the Perseus was also working through the white box, as you see here. So they were working on white box. Now they're in the gray box, and so they're working pretty well through that. And we'll take a look at that update. I do want to hold on here, the Zeus and the Polaris. Both of those will come into play for the Perseus, but do know they're going to work on this Zeus part here pretty heavily, the kit that they use for the Zeus, for the Galaxy, as the Galaxy will be worked on once the Perseus is completed. So let's go in here. Additionally, there's some other unannounced vehicles here, which I think are really referred to in the next update with some of the stuff that the UK team moved on to. Already, my dad's dog barks a lot, and she's staying with us. So I don't know if you got that in the last video. I'll try to clip that out, but if you do, that's my dad's dog. Here we are with the last month's update. So obviously, a lot of these have progressed through for the Invictus release. They did have 3 ships they were working on. So those 3 ships, obviously, being the MTC, the MX, and the Asgard, as well as the TAC that was named here. We obviously know the Idris came out as well, but that one didn't necessarily need a lot of work as it was largely done and dusted. So I don't know if any of these updates, I don't think any of those really applied to that particular ship. But we do know obviously all of those ships came along. So there's other ships here that they're progressing for unannounced vehicles, which I think it'll be relevant to our newest update. So they're working on 1 through white box towards full production. So white box, then gray box, and then it goes to the final LOD for completion. So just keep that in mind. So the white box is pretty early days. Excuse me, the second one is finishing gray box and into final completion here. So this one is basically done and dusted. The third one here being released recently showed in Inside Star Citizen. I do believe this to continue to be the Kruger ship. It's progressing through concept, so it's relatively new. I don't know. This concept part here indicates it could also be the other ship. I think both of these two are related to the Inside Star Citizen because one of them is the Kruger, and I think the other one being the RSI salvaging ship. So both of those two I think are in early days, and they were again showcased in a now not a recently updated Inside Star Citizen, but a few months ago you could find that Inside Star Citizen update from the art team. Consolidated Outland Pioneer. They're working on that one. It's still white box. Unfortunately, we'll find from the newest update, it's still in white box. That's a big ship. It's going to take a lot of time. I don't think we'll necessarily see that by the end of the year. Do note with the Pioneer, they did mention originally that the Pioneer would not be coming for day one of crafting, or base building. It's meant to come at a later date. That being said, I do think that the day one for crafting and base building has been pushed off because of some of the things, the focuses they have now with how they want to work with the new features and focusing on gameplay. So I do think that's pushed that timeline off. So it's possible the Pioneer could be coming on day one of crafting and base building, but I don't see it. But they did mention before that wouldn't be the case. Um, the other things here, we do have the North American team. So again, they're working on two variants. And before I mentioned before, they were working on two RSI ships. So I do think there are two RSI variants. Those ships are being progressed through. I do think one of those ships is going to be that Mantis variant, possibly a heavy fighter variant. It's hard to say, but that's what I'm thinking will happen here, and that's already been somewhat leaked before. RSI Apollo working through Gray Box here, and the Perseus was also working through Gray Box as well. So both of these two ships being worked on, but we do have a bit of an update for that, right? So they did say the medbed area and the bridge were being worked on. So this update will cover that in a little more depth. So this is the newest update. We have 4 unannounced ships again. I think it's related to the last unannounced ships that were unrelated to Invictus. The first officially entering production. So again, the other one was finishing through concept. I think that ship has been conceptually picked through that concept and is now in production. The second one progresses towards its upcoming white box review gate. So I don't know if that means it's moving into white box or if it is possibly already in white box moving to gray box. But at any rate, these two ships are pretty early days. This one's in very early days. So I do think that Kruger ship and the RSI salvaging ship are pretty early days. We may not see those until IAE or later. Third ship continues. Well, those are both small ships, though, so it's possible they could come out before then. I think Workers' Month is coming up as well at some point after Alien Week, so we could maybe see the salvaging ship then. They don't necessarily release ships, though, usually around those time frames. The third ship continues down the production pipeline. Artist continuing awaiting final feedback for LOD review. It is quite possible that this third ship here could be that Prowler that is coming along, the Prowler variant. I do think that's quite possible. So that's what my guess is going to be for this particular one as that one prepares to come out for Alien Week. The fourth receives considerable attention through white box phase. It mentions it's working on a new entry and exit animations. So not sure what most people think for this one. It's possible that maybe that Drake type of heavy fighter with the interesting wings essentially has the Corsair looking wings. That may be what they're referring to here. Let me know what you think as far as the entry and exit animations. That one comes to mind. The other one that comes to mind is going to be maybe that consolidated ship, or it just could be something that's totally unannounced. For me, that would think it would maybe be an alien ship, because that would make the most sense, as those are the ones that do things somewhat interesting with their interiors at some times. But with it only being a white box phase, unless they're just going to announce it during Alien Week and then, of course, release that, I think that other Prowler variant is probably ready to go. It'll be probably straight to flyable. That's my understanding and how I think it'll play out. But if there's another alien variant, it's possible that could be something they describe. Something cool would be a big update on the Raylan. That would be pretty cool. So I don't know if that has any interesting entry or exit animations associated with it. It could, because when I first think of an interesting entry and exit type of ship, it's the Raylan's cousin there, the Sulin. So, or brother, cousin, whatever. Anyways, moving on. So the Paladin is actually progressing. So they are working actively on the Paladin. I'm actually surprised they didn't give an update for Invictus on Anvil Day for the Paladin. I've been actually really disappointed we haven't seen any news about the Paladin. They did indicate that it's coming and they have announced it, but they've never done a video on it. And I would have liked to have seen an Inside Star Citizen for the Paladin at this point. I don't see why not at this point. I don't know why it's been neglected at this turn in the road here. So it is in gray box, so it's progressing through gray box. So that's pretty almost complete as gray box. Then it comes to this final LOD review for final completion. So we'll see this possibly by the end of the year, IAE. I think that's quite possible. We could maybe see it before then as well. From a speculation and CCU buyback perspective, if you have these in your buyback, be ready to buy them back in the next coming months as this continues development. Hopefully we get more word on its progress. The Pioneer, again, continues to be in white box. They just kind of mentioned here that this is a big ship and it will continue rework. I talked a little bit about in the last month's update, as well as just kind of belabored it a few minutes ago. I don't want to belabor it here, but I do think it's going to be some time before we see this particular ship. They do mention here during Invictus, they did pause on the Ironclad, which is unfortunate. No major discussions on what phase it's actually on now, so it could be, it's at least in white box. It's possible it's in gray box. I feel like they would mention that. I feel like it's in white box and they don't want to tell us that. Does that mean it'll make it out by IAE? I think that's believable as the other ships are progressing pretty well, but it's hard to say. Obviously it's announced that they're working on it just like they are with the Pioneer. It was never necessarily said that they'll be coming out this year. I do hope it comes out by IAE, but unless we get some better updates in the coming months, it's looking kind of rough. So I hope, again, I hope they can get it out, and I'm not saying they can't. I just wish, without them being a little more specific on what phases they're on, this hurts a bit, especially as somebody who knows. I mean, I just recently did pledge back the Ironclad, worked up a CCU chain for it, so I'm looking forward to it. I had to melt it when I was getting the Idris, so that's a side story there. But I'm working up on it again. I do have it again, and I'm looking forward to it. But with the Kraken, I'm looking forward to the Kraken. That's kind of, this is all needed for that as well. So the sooner this can get done, they could potentially start looking at the Kraken and try to figure out how the Ironclad helps the Kraken, because it does help the Kraken. All right. MX was worked on by the North American team. So they're working on two variants, which we've already talked about before. So this ship successfully passed the final review. So this one is basically done and dusted. So let me know what you think. It could be the Meteor. It's also possible the Meteor is that RSI variant that I just was talking about before, the Mantis variant. I don't know if that Mantis variant is going to be the Meteor, or if the Meteor is a different ship. They did talk a bit before, and so they mentioned now is that they're working on the other ship that's unannounced, white box review, with the key mechanics that have to be kind of adjusted. So the key mechanics, let me know if you think it's new. It's possible that ship, again, I still think maybe the Meteor has a laser weapon, beam weapon essentially, not a laser. Laser is not a good way to put that, but a beam weapon. I do think they want to possibly not just put that on the Idris, but maybe put it on a small fighter as well. So that would be interesting to see. So seeing that on RSI variant would be interesting. But yeah, those are both the variants that they're working on. And again, I think the Mantis is coming along. I don't know what the other RSI variant is. The only one I can think of that comes to mind, obviously, at first is the MR. But the MR is not meant to come out, from my understanding, until after the 2.0 release for bounty hunting. But the Idris wasn't supposed to come out until, it wasn't supposed to come out either. So it's one of those things where who knows when they'll release things. They may say one thing and then do another. So it's impossible to say for sure. It could be the MR. There was also a fourth Zeus kind of indicated in the marketing material originally. So it's possible there's either a racing variant or something that's a bit upgunned over the MR. I think the MR has the most guns. It has more crew guns, more so than just the pilot ones. But it's possible there's a better gunned variant of the Zeus that we might see. That could be one of those. Let me know what you think the other variant for the RSI area might be, besides just the Mantis one. I think the Mantis, I'm pretty sold on that one. I just don't know what the other RSI ship is that they're working on. The Zeus, again, kind of makes sense because it's a popular ship. And again, I recall a fourth ship being shown in some of the marketing materials. And I think it even has a letter designation, maybe X something or other, maybe XR or something. People will be able to point that out a little more in the comments. I didn't do a whole lot of looking into it because it's not super relevant, as we don't have a lot of details to know if that's the case. That comes to mind when I think about RSI variants. Not sure what other RSI ships it could be. Because a lot of the other RSI ships have a lot of variants. The Galaxy and stuff not being out, a lot of the ships that aren't out yet are RSI ships, but they're just not out, so there's no reason to have a variant for it, at least in my eyes. I would like to see the original ship come out before the variant. The Apollo Medevac and Triage passed their gray box reviews, so this is very exciting. I thought the Triage was only one being worked on, and the Medevac was possibly not being worked. I assumed that the Medevac would get the Triage as a loaner ship for those that had the Medevac, including myself. So the Apollo, it's very exciting to see that they're working on both of the ships, and both of them are progressing pretty well. And they do talk about the medbed modules tiers. So it's possible we may see some modularity here, as originally when they talked about the Apollo, they mentioned that the ships would only come in the default loadout of 3 size 3 beds on each module. So if you're not aware, the Apollos have 2 module sections, one on each side of the ship, and those allow for 3 types of bed modules. 3 size tier 3 beds, 2 tier 2 beds, and 1 tier 1 bed, or I should say not and. So again, it's 3 tier 3 beds, or 2 tier 2 beds, or 1 tier 1 bed. So you're not going to get all of those, but you can mix and match those those 3 variations across those 2 particular module sections. It's hard to visualize maybe, but again, you can have like 3 tier 3s and 1 tier 1. That's kind of what I'm leaning towards, because then you'll have a tier 1, but then more spawning beds for tier 3, as long as you can continue to spawn in tier 3s. And that also is very close to what the Idris actually offers, as the Idris has 4 tier 3s and 1 tier 1. So it's interesting to think that the Apollo could have similar medical capability that the Idris has. I mean, it should, because it's a dedicated medical ship. Next, we have the RSI Perseus, which is working through Gatebox as well for its gate review. So it was previously in white box, I think just as of this month. Gray box here. Okay, they didn't really specify here. It was in white box in this update. So a few months ago, the Perseus was in white box. Well, it passed white box review. So it's possible the Perseus is getting pretty done here. Do I think it'll come out before IAE? I don't think so. I think they've more or less said that it will be coming by the end of the year. And then again, luckily, they'll be able to work on the Galaxy as well afterwards. So yeah, definitely interesting to see these updates. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Again, I'll take any well wishes for our family as we go through some troubling times. But I appreciate the support from all of you, each and all of you, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.